Hey everybody, it's Sabrina. Welcome back to my channel. So I told you guys that I would do a Sunday reading journal video. I don't typically do videos back to back, but here we go. I promised a video, so we're gonna do it. September was a weird month for reading. Well, weird in the sense that I had an eclectic mix of books, and most of the books took me a long time to get through. I also spent a few days with my friend Erica. We were down in Disneyland, so I didn't read during that time. And I also didn't listen to a lot of audiobooks this month. So I only read 9 books, which is still better than nothing, of course. And then for the goals, I'm going to add, I think, 2 boxes for the first goal, which is read 150 books. And then I will also add another box for the second goal, which is 50,000 pages. I even added one for the middle school books because I read a book about a World War II pilot, and that was a middle school book. I read the middle school version. I also was able to add my first 2 spooky books for goal 7, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, and also Witches. That was another book that my daughter actually found. She's so good at finding really interesting nonfiction books. She does some awesome research. So I read that book. It's geared towards middle school. Monthly fave was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, the second book by that author, and I don't think it disappointed. I think that's how you say it. Either way, I think it was fantastic. I loved it. It was so good. There was even a skeleton rooster that became available at Target, and so I had to grab it since it reminded me of one of the characters in that book. So for monthly stats, I just wrote them all down here in this graph that I made, and I'll go over those monthly stats more when we get to the September making pages. But it really was a very light month on reading, only like 2,700 pages total. Filling in my Goodreads chart, I don't even remember how many boxes I did for this chart. I can't remember, but all I'm doing is filling in each of the boxes and then adding in the month. And I feel like this is the best Goodreads page or idea page that I've ever come up with. So I will definitely be doing this same thing for 2026. It's very simple, to the point. I can see exactly, where I'm trying to go with this Goodreads. The first lines, oh boy, that was a disaster. I did not get that completed, but that's okay. I also cut the wrong size on my Cameo for a resistance of witches, so I need to go back and cut that, and I'm just going to write it in pencil so that way I remember. That's what I've been doing with the ABC challenge since I am trying to do a massive catch-up, and having it in pencil will help me to remember. Genres, I feel like that was kind of a miss for this year. I really need to figure out a way to keep track of nonfiction and favorites and audio, like as a whole. So sometimes the books will count for 2 sections, and that's okay. And I think I just kept confusing myself. I also had 2 romances, Caught Up and Left of Forever, but I also cut those wrong. I have no idea why, but I did. And I am doing okay with this challenge. I'm definitely reading the books like out of order. Each month has a prompt for those 2 particular challenges, but I'm just reading them out of order because sometimes the books take a while to get in, or sometimes I'm reading another book, but eventually I will get to whatever the topic is for the book Girl Club. I think that's what it's called, Book Girl Club. I will leave a link in the description, but I am really enjoying both of those challenges. I'm doing the Book Lovers Challenge and the Lifetime of Reading, which was on the right-hand side with the tree ring. And so I'm enjoying both of them, and I'm sure I'm going to continue them for next year. So when I put together the calendar pages, I think I have a video for that, but I laid down these calendar sticker pages and I pre-planned out my washi. So it made it really easy to pick my color scheme for the months. Super easy. And I just grabbed a piece of scratch like grid paper so I could get the colors that will match with this washi tape. It's a really old one from Once More with Love. Once More with Love. And I am definitely going with the fall colors of greens and yellows and some gold and brown. And I'm excited to bring this together and also use my Syncopation Designs stamps because I have a ton of her new ones. I shared those in a behind the scenes video, but she has a set of seasonal stamp sets. So winter, spring, summer, and fall. And I am excited to find a way to use those in my 2026 reading journal. There's got to be a way. I've got to figure out a way. I don't do like season specific, but it would be really cool if I could incorporate those stamps in some way because I just love every single one of them. So what I do with the shelfie page is obviously fill it in with the colors that I pick, and I try to make sure that each color has at least 2 books that are colored in with that color. And I also pick enough colors that I can do my graph that I get from or my pie chart that I get from Storygraph. I really love that, and it takes I break it into 6 categories. So if you've watched any of my other reading journal videos, when I do the stats, I break it up by emotions. And so having 6 colors is generally how many that I need. And then with the shelfie, I can fill it in with various stamps and I don't color those in. I think maybe next year I'll color it in. I don't know. I feel like with the black and just the black, it really stands out. So I stamped autumn reading, then a calendar with some leaves on it, and over in the bottom right hand corner of the actual calendar on the right hand side I did fall into reading, and now I'm going to stamp a bunch of leaves. There's the autumn reading stamp set that I'm using, and then also the fall bucket list that I'm using. And that particular one has a ton of leaves on them. They're super tiny, but I love them. They're going to be perfect for not only this project, but also for my journal because they're so tiny, and that's what I need. I'm gravitating towards tiny stamps. And then what I do is I fill in the titles of the various books, and I don't put them in any particular order. I mean, I try to, but I just do a few on the first shelf, a few on the second, and then so on and so forth. And I love how this looks. Again, thinking of 2026, it's going to be here before we know it. And I'm definitely keeping both of these formats. I might bring back the shelfie for the entire year, but also keep this as well. So just thinking on that. Okay, so I finished up a book called Caught Up. It's like a dark, steamy romance. I finished that on the 1st. And then I had a coworker give me a nonfiction book called A Marriage at Sea. And I read that, and it was quite interesting. I was actually frustrated with the couple because they wanted to go on this terrific adventure together and decided they didn't want any like modern day modern day like tracking information or satellite stuff. So when their boat got hit by a whale, they obviously couldn't contact anyone. So they spent 4 months at sea. And I'm just like, these people are ridiculous. Why did they not get the stuff that they needed or just have it on their boat just in case? I don't know. That book just made me frustrated. I also read The Other Side of Now, which was a really great magical realism type book. I don't normally like those, but I really enjoyed that one. And then I told you guys about A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. I loved that book. I just loved the characters, the storyline, the magic elements. It was all so good. I also listened to a nonfiction book called The Emotional Lives of Teenagers, which had a lot of fantastic insights to it. And I forgot to add that to the bottom or the end of September. So I'm going to have to come back and add that, but that's okay. And then once I have everything written down, that's when I go back with a Tombow and just use one color for the audio and one color for the physical books, or the books that I, read, either physical or Kindle. So I love that as well. It kind of highlights the books and helps me to know which is which. One of the ways that I'm trying to catch up is that I pre-designed, or I laid out the design for all the pages for the rest of the year. So that way I don't have to really draw out anything. I even started writing Post-it notes of the stats, but I didn't finish September's. You saw me peel it off, but I love this, and I think I will carry this into 2026 because, like I said, it's just fill it in now. Like, I don't have to do all the drawing and designing, so I'm just picking out some alphas so that way I can stamp September stats. Well, it's just going to be SEPT, SEP. Is that how we say it? SEP stats. And I'm going to quickly realize that I didn't leave enough space. I should have lowered my 2 lines that I have at the top. I should have lowered those, but I think I made it work really well. I made a nice cluster with all the different pieces that I had. So once I stamp the September, I want to get the number that I need for the total number of books. And I always like to pick a really large number, and I'm going to use one from Ali Edwards and stamp that. Once that is stamped, now I can figure out where I can place the word stats, and it's going to have to go a little bit to the right of the 9. It's all going to work out. I also have some Once More with Love Bookish stickers that I'm going to add since it's only a small sheet and I really want to try to finish it up. So now that I've got my title, I add that sticker. It's so cute. It says Bookish. And then I will take Tombow and I will just draw 2 lines or highlight 2 lines. So that way it gives a little more emphasis to what each category is, and also allows me to bring in more of the monthly colors. I didn't leave enough room up at the total pages, so I had to kind of extend the line, and I made it work. I think it's going to turn out really nice, like I said, with all those stickers and the washi tape. So total pages was 2,695. This is where I grab the washi tape because I have a really large space on the right-hand side, and I want to fill that in with something. So I started out with the washi, and a little bit I'm going to come in with a big sticker and add that in. The next stats are physical, Kindle, and audio. And I only had, well, not only, I think any reading is better than none. That's my opinion. So I said it wrong. Physical was 7 total books, Kindle was none, and then audio was 2. But I went back to the washi tape and I pulled it up and I added a cute little, I don't know what it's called, but a cute little creature on a bookshelf, and I love that. Now my little clustering up at the top is complete and it looks fantastic. I'm adding the highlighting to the average rating, and then I kind of mess up on it because I write average rating and it just gets smudged. So I grab my spare paper, draw some Tombow, highlighted lines, and I'll just let that dry for a second and then cut it out, and you won't even be able to tell that I made a mess. It just looked really blurry and smudged, and I didn't like it. So that's why I had to fix it. I also added my lines for the hours listened, but then I went back to stamp the total number of books, and this is when I realized that I actually did read 2 audios and I needed to add the emotional lives of teenagers to the bottom of my calendar, and I accidentally highlighted it in the wrong color, so I will have to go back and fix that at some point, but that's okay. So I got that Tombow highlighted, and I am just going to cut it out so that way I can add it right below the average rating, which was 4.56. So even though I felt like my books were very eclectic mix, I still had a lot of really fantastic books that I read during the month, and I wound up with a whopping total of 4 that were 5 stars. And so I just had a great reading month overall. I really loved Caught Up, that dark romance that I was telling you about, The Other Side of Now, and then The Left of Forever, which is a romance series by Tara DeWitt, I think. But I really loved that, especially because it had older characters who had been, together a long time, but they were having like a second chance at their relationship. And I just like that. I think we need more older characters in our books, and older as in like not their 20s. A lot of romances I think center on the 20s. These characters were more my age, and I'm not saying I'm old, but you get what I'm saying. We need more of the mature, let's use that word, mature characters. So I have one book that I rated 3.75. Same thing with 4 and then 4.25. Just filling in that, what is it called? Bar graph? I'm filling that in. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that for next year. It's such a pain to make. If I could figure out how to do that in Canva, I probably will, because it would be easier, or just eliminate it altogether. I also used a marker twice, the same marker twice, and decided I didn't like it. So I grabbed my spare paper and I picked a different Tombow and filled in that mistake as well, because it was just gonna bug me if each of the bar sections were not different colors. So I fixed that. I'm finally stamping my average rating, and then I'm going to move over to the top of the right side of the page and do 16.93 hours listened. Like I said, not a lot of audio listening in September, probably because it was the start of school, like getting back into the routine. So that makes sense. But like I said, any reading is better than no reading. And right now I am reading Leather and Lark, a very dark romance, but I really wanted to continue the series. And then I'm listening to The World's Greatest Detective and Just Okay Assistant. That is a really long title, but I'm enjoying the audio on that, and I find it entertaining about trying to figure out who done it. And again, the title just cracks me up. I'd love to know in the comment section what you guys are reading right now, and what you're hoping to read towards, as we wrap up the end of the year. I'm hoping to finish more of the Lifetime of Reading and Book Lovers Challenge books. I'd love to read more of those, and I'm also starting to kind of research what I can read for the holidays, because I want to read some Christmas books. So we shall see. I did buy the new B.K. Borison book, Good Spirits. I think it's a holiday, but either way, I bought it, and I'm definitely going to read that because I didn't want to wait for, the library to get it in. I am stamping Crisp Leaves and Cozy Reads right next to the Magical Innkeeping, and I'll also stamp Favorite as well. And then that's when I decide to stamp all the different leaves, because, like I said, the stamp sets have all those leaves, and it was so fun to just add to the theme of September, which is fall, changing seasons, and then the book cover actually has greenery on the side. So I felt like it all tied in really nicely. I was also kind of proud of myself that I went with a fall color scheme instead of going with the book cover. I tend to go with the book cover, but this time I had that really pretty washi tape. I really wanted to do my new fall stamps, so that's why I went with fall. And hopefully this book cover doesn't stick out too much, like a sore thumb, and it works. I'm just going to say it all works. And I don't know how many different types of leaves I stamped, but there was at least 3 different types that I stamped. And once I get them all, stamped, I'm going to add the color to them, which is really fun to add. Love coloring in with my Tombos. And I think for next year, the stats page for my books is probably going to stay the same if I can figure out how to make a, like I said, in Canva, if I can figure out how to do bar graphs and pie charts, I will probably print those out on stickers or something like that. And then once they're printed, I can color them in myself. So definitely excited to try something new for 2026 because I think I'm going to try a different format for 2026. But it is similar to 2023. So there's a little hint. I don't want to give anything away, but that's a little hint. I'm coloring in the leaf on crisp leaves, that stamped leaf, and then also favorite. And as I was coloring in the leaves, I tried to make sure that I had a balance of like where I colored the orange or where I colored the gold, and I wound up only having, I think, 1 green leaf, and so I had to stamp a few more so that way I could balance it out. And I don't know, I loved it. I love stamping all the leaves. And it, again, like I said, it matches the theme of the books. And once I have that done, I can go ahead and start working on my pie chart down in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my Story Graph app. It's not showing me a pie chart for the various moods in the books that I read for September. So I'm just kind of making my own based on what I think the percentage was, and that'll be good enough. I always start off tracing in pencil so that way I can try my best to get it to each of the lines to be at the central point in the middle of the circle. And it doesn't really need to be perfect, but like I said, try my best. And then I will fill in each of the sections with a different color of Tombow. This is again why the 6 is important, because I like to have 6 in my pie chart. So I'm going to grab my markers and fill in the various sections. The first one was emotional, followed by hopeful, then adventurous, reflective, funny, and other. So emotional tends to be the one that I read the most, so I'm not surprised that I read a lot of emotional books. I was surprised, which I guess I shouldn't be if I had looked at my total number of books, but I was surprised at the percentage of nonfiction this month. It was 44%, which means pretty much half the books that I read in September were nonfiction, which was surprising, but again, not surprising if I actually looked at what I read. So that is really great. And I'm going to add the 44% in just a minute when I'm done with the pie chart, because I'm going to look at the pie chart and realize that there's another line down at the very bottom of the page, and I need to fill that in. So I'm just going to highlight and then write out nonfiction and then stamp 44 and then add the percents. And that will pretty much wrap up September stats. I so love making these pages and sharing them with you. I've missed sharing them with you guys. It's been a busy few months for me, and reading journal took a little bit of a back seat. But I'm hoping to try to make an effort to catch up for the end of the year. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'd love a thumbs up or a subscribe if you are new to my channel. Have a wonderful day. Bye.